Hello, 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 and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy, my friends, Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the reuse and distribution of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is BIPCOT.org. This is episode 77, which we don't have a title for because half the team isn't here and we're still in post-Thanksgiving slumbers.
I'm sure we'll come up with something after we get near the end of the episode or halfway through it or something. That's creative. That works.
Oh, we have some articles that will definitely fit the bill for a good title, like anti-paramilitary action. God.
Anti-sanity bill. And
that's out of Virginia. Virginia anti-paramilitary.
Yep.
Like the
the state that seceded from the Union and raised the Army of Northern Virginia, the home of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, P.T. Beauregard. That.
You can even go back to the Revolutionary War with Virginia's paramilitary action.
George Washington, Thomas Jefferson.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
You know, that's the irony, though. That's the irony of the East Coast in particular. And like Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. A lot of these places that were part of the original colonies that were centers for rebellion at the time. And even then, 87 years later in the Civil War, where again, centers for rebellion are now so incredibly state worshipping.
I actually, last night I was in a little bit of a mood and I got on Netflix and I watched rewatched for probably the dozenth time the documentary on Ruby Ridge that's on Netflix. It's American Experience.
Oh, okay.
The PBS one or whatever it is, KQED or whatever. It's the Ruby Ridge on Netflix one, and every time I watch it, I discover a little snippet or something that gets me. But last night, the part that really stuck with me is they were interviewing a guy after the standoff, after Randy and the girls came out of the cabin, and the guy was talking to a reporter, and he was talking about how the East Coast had been pacified, and that the big government moved west to try and pacify the last of the cowboys and real Americans. That was like 1992, you guys. They said that in 1992, and the federal government, Bureau of Land Management, Department of Natural Resources, National Parks, National Forest, owns what is it, like 56% of the western states.
They're the majority landholders in like 15 states or something. It's ridiculous.
The Bureau of Land Management is trying to move its headquarters to Colorado. Just
yet another leftist stronghold in the West. I mean, it didn't used to be. Colorado used to still be pretty pro-gun and pro-freedom and kind of live and let live. But in the past 15 years, Colorado has gone hard left.
Well, it's the same issue that a lot of California, Oregon, and Washington have. It's the urban population around Denver is so... The numbers in Denver are much higher than in the rest of the state. Same here in California, the LA area, San Francisco area. The numbers, the liberal voters in those areas outnumber the conservative parts of the state. And once you get out of the rural areas, as in Colorado, as in Oregon, as in Washington, as in California, like once you get out of the urban areas, the state becomes very conservative and even libertarian in places.
Yeah.
But we're outnumbered.
Well, yeah, you're going to be outnumbered. And I mean, ultimately, because if you look at most states, like take Wisconsin, for example. The majority of the state is very right-leaning, very live and let live. I mean, I would say more libertarian than Republican in general. But when you get to, say, Madison, it's about as hard left as you can possibly get. I mean, the University of Wisconsin is the birthplace of the progressive movement. That is where it started. So it's as hard left as you get. And then you have, Milwaukee, which is Chicago light. And
it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's just Chicago light. I mean, it's barely north of Chicago. It's right on Lake Michigan, the same as Chicago. It's a major port. So you have Milwaukee, and it's pretty much that area. The southeastern corner of Wisconsin is all hard left. And most of the rest of the state is not. But because there are so many more people there, and that's where the state capital is, you'd never know that Wisconsin is actually an important even swing state in most elections, just as important as Iowa. I think it's funny that everybody campaigns in Iowa and everyone forgets to campaign in Wisconsin. It's like, we're a swing state too. We go, we swing both ways. But it's, I mean, you see that in Oregon, where if you divided the state at the coast, Oregon would be significantly more live and let live. Same with Washington, same with California, all the way down the coast. And I mean, even in New York, to a certain extent, like upstate is different than around New York City. Upstate New York is pretty rural. It's much more pro firearm and live and let live than New York City is. But New York City is a city of how many millions of people? I mean, how do you compete with that population?
You don't.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, there are people in that city who have literally never been outside that city in their entire lives.
Yep. You don't. There's no. Yeah, so, but that kind of segues into the article, the Virginia bill. And I will say Virginia, I wish Derica was here so that she could talk to you guys about it. But Virginia, much like the rest of us, much like Wisconsin and California here, once you get out of that urban area, it gets very, very, very rural and very Republican and conservative and libertarian. I mean, like, fuck, our homie Slinky is from Virginia, and he's as backwoods redneck white trash as they come.
God, Slinky.
But Virginia State Senator L. Louise Lucas, she represents an area outside Norfolk. So that should tell you right there.
Yep.
So, Virginia State Senator Eloise Lucas pre-filed Senate Bill 6-4, titled "A Bill to Amend and Reenact 18.2-433.2 of the Code of Virginia, relating to paramilitary activities." Okay,
there's label paramilitary activities.
There's a whole bunch of this bill, but the really relevant portion, it's legal speak. It's only 3 paragraphs, but it is legal speak, so just bear with me. It says, a person shall be guilty of unlawful paramilitary activity, punishable as a Class 5 felony, if he, 1, teaches or demonstrates to other persons the use, application, or making of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, knowing or having reason to know or intending that such training will be employed for the use in or in furtherance of civil disorder.
So basically, to sum that up, if you teach guns, gun use, or martial arts, any form of self-defense, knife defense, how to deploy a can of mace, firearms, explosive, or incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons. So if it's somebody, and that the end of it's the kind of where they're trying to be, oh, it's just about anti-government rebels, right? They're trying, because of the boogaloo, they're trying to stop the boogaloo here.
Are we still using that word?
In public, yeah.
Well, I know ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, put out an article saying that the word boogaloo was a alt-right anti-government civil war, race war.
Yeah, they tried to conflate being anti-government with being pro-white, which I think is hilarious. And they tried to conflate it with being like racist, and you just want to start a race war, and you're just racist, because that's their go-to. As soon as you make sense, now they want to go to, well, you're a racist. Whether you're a racist or not, they don't care. That's their go-to. And the thing is if you talk to the extreme leftists, you will very quickly realize they don't pay any attention to anything at all. So as soon as someone says something that they can parrot easily, that's what they're going to parrot.
Yep.
So now the boogaloo is apparently racist. I don't care what they have to say. It's still the boogaloo, big luau, big igloo. I think
the big luau or big igloo, it's a multicultural term. They can't call us racist now.
Yeah, because we're embracing native cultures, man.
All right, 2. Assembles with one or more persons for the purpose of training, with practicing with or being instructed in the use of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device or technique capable of causing harm or death to persons, intending to employ such training for the use in or furtherance of civil disorder.
Civil disorder, nice murky thing.
What is the definition of civil disorder, right? I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to. What's the definition of civil disorder? Is disobeying an officer civil disorder? Is refusing to pull over civil disorder? Is intending or sorry, not intending, is using a firearm to defend your home from a person's on a no-knock raid, which has been legalized by the Supreme Court, is that technically civil disorder?
You can be charged with disturbing the peace and civil disobedience for getting in a very loud argument in a street. So, well, that's civil disorder, apparently. If we start there with just disagreeing loudly with someone, then anything is civil disorder. What they're doing is they're setting up so that they can go, well, you espouse, or the people that you're training are espousing pro-Second Amendment views, and the Second Amendment, the way it was originally intended to be, and therefore you're engaging in paramilitary training.
Yeah. And then the third one that highlighted in this article from Truth About Guns is assembles with one or more persons with the intent of intimidating any person or group of persons by drilling, parading, or marching with any firearm or explosives or incendiary device, or any components or combination thereof.
Note they just say person or persons. They don't specify any groups.
Yeah. So did they just nuke all Second Amendment protests?
Yep. That's the point. If your goal is to get cops to not interfere, like down in Texas when they do the Feed the Homeless where they're all armed, right? They're all carrying ARs. Under this Virginia law,
that's the Don't Comply group.
Right. Under this Virginia law, that would now be a paramilitary demonstration, and you would be charged with a Class 5 felony.
Yeah. And then the article goes on to say, Thomas Jefferson would be so proud. Frankly, most of this seems pointless, as it would already seem to be covered by Virginia's conspiracy law. I think, however, number 3 is the real point here. That would be the assembles with one or more persons. And it says, I suspect, being a Democrat, that Representative Lucas has the Pantifa Redneck Revolt or the John Brown Gun Club in mind. But those on the left often consider simple open carry by anyone other than a police officer to be intimidating. No doubt the intended targets of this folks are likely to be the Oath Keepers or OC activists.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind by the definition of this, because you can be charged with doing it if you just have reason to know that somebody is using it to train for civil disobedience, which means that effectively anyone who espouses any pro-Second Amendment views is no longer going to be able to be in a training class, the court or the legally required training classes to obtain a concealed carry license in the state of Virginia.
Yeah, which, as you and I discussed pre-show, might be kind of the point, right? I mean, let's also take in the fact that it calls this a Class 5 felony. And in the state of Virginia, Class 5 felonies call for a term of imprisonment of not less than 1 year, no more than 10 years, or in the discretion of the jury, the court trying the case without a jury, confinement in jail for not more than 12 months, and a fine not more than $2,500.
And that makes you a felon, which means you lose what? Your gun rights.
Your gun rights, your voting rights, basically your ability to hold any high-paying job, no student loans,
no CDLs,
no CDL. It's
so they are willing to destroy your life forever because you taught a hunter safety class to a guy who said, well, if the government comes for my guns, I'm going to shoot back.
Yeah.
That immediately makes you a felon.
Yep. Teaches or demonstrates to any persons the use of application or making of any firearm, explosives, or incendiary device. Yes. So teaching your kids to shoot under this could be construed as a Class 5 felony and a paramilitary activity.
Now, I mean, it hasn't passed yet, so
no, it was recently submitted, and just for accuracy's sake, this was also submitted in 2018, and it was killed in committee by Republicans. But as we know, Virginia flipped in the last election, and it is a Democrat-controlled House and Senate now. Which
is something that I've been harping on it for a while, and I've been getting steadily more vocal about it, is the idea of this American South parading around as if they're all so rebellious is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because you look at most of the states in the South, and they're so authoritarian and happily authoritarian. They're so back the blues, support the troops, just obey and nothing will happen to you and everything. They're so that way consistently across the board. The few exceptions are maybe in the West Virginia mountains, because they're all moonshiners and willing to shoot people for kind of anything. There are a few exceptions, but so much of the American South is going so hard left, and you're seeing it, and even the places that aren't hard left that are pretty hard right worship the cops.
Yep.
And seem to not understand. They have this weird cognitive dissonance issue where they don't understand that the cops are the ones enforcing the laws, that without the police being willing to literally kill you over a law, that the law is just a bunch of angry men yelling in some big office somewhere and nothing else.
Yeah, without the people enforcing it, it's just their words on paper. They're like the classifieds or the funny pages or some sports article. They're nothing. They mean absolutely nothing without people willing to enforce it. And speaking of words on paper, we could also take a very factual look at this, right? According to the left, the Second Amendment only applies to people in the militia or all that sort of stuff. This bill outlaws militias.
Yeah, it does.
It legally criminalizes militias. I don't have anything else to say on that. It's just
Yeah, so they have no ground to stand on when it comes to the Second Amendment here because they can't even try and argue, even ignoring what the Second Amendment actually says and what it means by militia and well regulated and what 18th century parlance actually was there, which means well maintained. That's all well regulated means is well maintained in 18th century parlance. But the entire idea that they've tried to use as to why the Second Amendment doesn't protect individual gun rights is, oh, well, it's just for militias. And now they're also going after even militias.
Which would give absolute credence to the point of the militia and the mission statement behind it.
Yeah. The entire militia movement is growing out of exactly this sort of thing, and that people very early on saw that this stuff was coming down the pipeline as more and more gun legislation was passed. They started to see what was happening, the disarming of America. They saw more freedoms getting lost. They saw all these things, and they went, hey, we need to do something. We need to get ready because this is going to come down the line. And it's better to be prepared 10 years in advance than not get prepared until 2 weeks before you're going to do something about it.
Yeah, I left a local militia for that very reason.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, you know, and that's the other irony too. Is a lot of these militias and the militia movement still worship cops and soldiers. Like, they still also don't understand who's coming to take their guns. They still don't also understand what really is giving these laws their teeth.
The commander of the group that I was formerly affiliated with, he had a blue line flag on his pole. It was the U.S. flag, and then the unit flag, and then a blue line flag on his pole.
Process that for just a moment. It's like, have you thought critically about any of this at all? Have you even taken a moment to go, hey, wait a minute, but if we're rebelling against the government, then the very people we're rebelling against are...
He also said that the Bundys should put down their guns and take their case to court.
Oh, good Lord! What is the point in having a militia?
Yeah, during that whole standoff. Yeah.
Yeah, you fucking coward.
That's when I left. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the point in having your militia if you're not willing to take up arms against anything? All you're doing is cosplaying at that point. That's it. You're a LARP.
Cosplay. Yeah.
That's all you're doing. You're LARPing a paramilitary organization. You are not, in fact, a paramilitary organization anymore.
They all have featureless rifles with the big blade on the thumb stock, so they can't grip it. Yeah. Oh, all right. Speaking of guns, though, let's move on to this next one. It's gun control. New Jersey's red flag law put to test in case between Middleton man and his doctor. This is Ashbury Park Press. This is out of Freehold, New Jersey. It says a Shore area lawyer and surgeon are asking a judge to keep guns out of the hands of a former patient in test of New Jersey's new red flag law. James Maggs, a wall-based attorney for Dr. Matthew Kaufman and the Plastic Surgery Center in Shrewsbury, told State Superior Court Judge Paul Escadon Thursday that he received an increasingly agitated phone call from Alfred Conti telling him he knew where he lived. Quote, it started out the first few seconds as a normal call, and then quickly he became agitated. His overall demeanor, I felt, became threatening, and I became alarmed. The hearing put a spotlight on the 2-month-old state law that allows authorities to strip firearms from people considered dangerous. Escadon didn't make a decision. Another hearing has been rescheduled for December 12th. Conti's 3 pistols, 1 rifle, and 1 revolver, along with his ammunition, were taken by police on September 25th, culminating what has been a long dispute between Conti and the practice. Conti, 56, of Middleton, has said Kaufman performed surgery on his neck, but he remained in pain. Eventually, he was dismissed from the practice because he became aggressive with the staff. Conti went online to write negative reviews about the doctor. Kaufman and the Plastic Surgery Center sued him for defamation in July. The next month, Conti twice called Maggs, the attorney, asking for Kaufman to see him again to help with the pain. Maggs recorded the second call, which was played in court Thursday. In it, Conti used expletives and threatened to bring the police and media with him to force Kaufman to see him. He also said he knew where Maggs and Kaufman lived. Maggs said he was worried, had seen posts on Conti's Facebook page that included references to guns. Maggs and Kaufman called the police, who drove to Conti's house and took his firearms under the state's red flag law.
And this isn't a psychologist that we're talking about here. This is a plastic
surgeon. A plastic surgeon. Yes.
And, and if you look at that quote in context, saying, well, I know where you live, he's saying, I will bring the media to your house.
Yes.
And ambush you at home with the media.
Yes.
Over this. So help me. That's what he's doing. And for saying that and threatening this guy because this guy is a hoplophobe and, he had guns.
No, it's because he felt threatened when he said that he knew where they lived. And Maggs said he was worried because he had seen posts on Conti's Facebook page that included references to guns.
And you can't tell me they're Facebook friends, which means he was stalking this guy online.
Yes. That's my take, too.
So he's stalking this guy, sees that the guy has guns. The guy threatens to bring the media to his house. And so, because this is the thing that we've all warned people about with red flag laws, that anyone can just make up a reason and invent a reason to have your guns taken away. That's exactly what he did.
And okay, Jason Seidman, Conti's lawyer, Conti's the guy that had the neck surgery, had the guns taken away, asked Maggs if his client directly told him he was going to inflict violence. Maggs, the doctor, said no. But after Conti mentioned he knew where he and Kaufman's Maggs' lawyer, lived, quote, that to me was something that made me very alarmed. That's it. That's the whole reason that he called the police, and the police, on the word of this doctor, he threatened me. I felt alarmed.
Yeah, he never actually
threatened him. He never threatened him. He just said he knows where they live. And threatened to bring the media to try and force him to see him again as a patient.
But if you pull the quote out of context and then you're a hoplophobe who's just so terrified of guns.
Yes.
Now, all of a sudden, oh God. And that's... This is exactly the shit. This is exactly the shit that we warned everybody about with these red flag laws and keep warning people about. This is exactly it. Like, you do understand that people can just make up reasons. They can just invent reasons to have your guns taken away. And even on the shakiest of evidence, it doesn't matter what the truth is. They'll take your guns away without due process first, and then decide later you have to prove your innocence and prove that you're not a threat. And then they may give your guns back.
Yes, that's exactly what this is. It's he had to go to court to try and prove that he was not a threat. And then, like, there was a whole trial thing about, can he have his guns back? Does he have the government's permission to have his firearms?
It's exactly what everyone said was going to happen. And like, oh no, you're just being paranoid. And the FUDs did the same thing. You're just being paranoid. The NRA did the same thing. Oh, you're just being paranoid. It's about keeping. I think we can all agree that dangerous people shouldn't have guns, and so if you oppose this, clearly you're just crazy too. And then we're like, no, it's really about the fact that the government shouldn't be deciding who should and should not have guns. And that's exactly what's happening. Is that at the moment the government has the tiniest excuse to take your guns away, they will.
Yeah,
the tiniest excuse. They will find that.
Yeah, 3 pistols, 1 rifle, and 1 revolver, along with the ammunition. Just on a word, just on the word of a doctor, not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, not even a doctor who was actively seeing the patient. Just on the word of a doctor.
Yeah, he refused to see the patient. That's what the guy was pissed off about. It's a pissed off customer who's like, hey, you said you were going to make me not in pain anymore. You didn't do that. I need you to fix that. And he's like, nah, sorry, I tried.
Yeah, he wrote a negative review about the doctor. And then Kaufman, that's the lawyer, and the Plastic Surgery Center sued him for defamation in July.
Over a negative review online.
Yeah, that's what this stems from. It's from a negative review online. And then they sued the guy, and the guy got upset, and he said, I'm going to bring the media and the police to your house. I know where you live. That's it. That's what it is. He said, Conti, let's see. In court Thursday, Nick Conti used explicitives and threatened to bring the police and the media with him to force Kaufman to see him. He also said he knew where Maggs and Kaufman lived.
It's nothing but just him saying, hey, seriously, I'm going to bring the media to your house, ambush you at home, just outside your home with a bunch of TV cameras while you're in your bathrobe and be like, why the hell? Why are you doing this to me? And that's the, and that's the other irony too, is that the same leftists who want to bitch and complain that the rich get special rules and rich people get all of this special treatment and are untouchable and that's wrong and blah, blah, blah. These red flag laws and things, this is exactly what's happening. Mm-hmm. Because this guy is rich and can afford a lawyer, he can afford to sue him for leaving a negative review, whereas other people cannot defend themselves in court over negative reviews. And so he's able to sue him because he has that kind of money. And then when his reputation is threatened through media, his response, because he's this rich, popular doctor, is to then get this guy's guns taken away and make him look like he's crazy.
it's there's no substance here. It wasn't a real threat. It wasn't backed by anything, right? Like, he didn't threaten to shoot anybody. There's no, like, he wasn't arrested. There's no police report. There's no incident. Like, he wasn't, taking photos outside the guy's house or anything like that. It's just, it was a misinterpreted statement and a phone call. And it turned into a fucking red flag confiscation with police going to the guy's house, taking away his property and his means of self-defense.
With no due process. Nothing. They just went, nope, you lose it.
Yep.
Oh yeah. And that's how we all knew it was going to work. I mean, we've already seen there's been red flag confiscations over things kids said in school. Mm-hmm. Where red flags have been carried out. There have been requests for red flag orders in Florida on like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
As if a 5-year-old owns weapons.
Wasn't there one in Missouri or something like that where a girl pointed her finger?
Yeah, pointed her finger at somebody else. They interpreted it as a gun gesture and threatening, therefore, and then red flagged her parents.
For pointing the finger, you guys.
Because that's all it takes. I mean, this is the equivalent of the Soviet Union with their the citizens informing on other citizens for counter-revolutionary thoughts and actions and words. Like, that's what this is.
How does Uncle Sam hold all this freedom with only two hands?
Boy, I sure am glad that the troops are defending all those freedoms in other countries. Since, there's such big threats to our freedom, unlike the United States government, who's here to secure it so well.
If only there was some sort of paramilitary activity.
Yeah, only paramilitary activity was legal. If only that same government would allow us. If it pleases the crown, might I train with my firearm?
Here, how about if it pleases the crown, may I park on the side of the road on an arbitrary night? All right. Chicago. 248 vehicles towed as winter parking ban takes effect. The overnight parking ban prohibits drivers from parking on 107 miles of main streets from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. until April 1st, regardless of snow.
Just because of the time of year. It doesn't matter if there's actually snow on the ground or not. And I can tell you right now, there ain't a whole lot.
Yep. And this is okay, we're recording this Sunday night. Today is December 1st. That's when this went into effect. December 1st. I'm looking at the sign in the article, and it says no parking 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. December 1st to April 1st, or when snow is over 2 inches. Okay, so nearly 200 vehicles were towed off city streets Sunday morning when the yearly winter parking ban took effect at 3 a.m. The overnight ban prohibits parking on 107 miles worth of main roadways between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. until April 1st, regardless of snow. Violators can face a $150 towing fee, $60 ticket, and $20 per day storage fee, the department said. Towed vehicles are taken to pounds on South Dottie Avenue and North Sacramento Boulevard. Streets and sanitation crews posted flyers on vehicles parked in affected areas in the days leading up to the ban, the department said. The restriction that took effect Sunday morning is separate from the snow-related ban, which kicks in whenever at least 2 inches of snow accumulate, regardless of the calendar date or time. The restrictions cover an additional 500 miles of main roadways across the city. Last winter, 9,594 vehicles were towed due to the overnight parking ban between December 1st and April 1st.
Just because of the time of year, there is no parking on these streets whatsoever. None.
Yes, between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. But 4 hours, they towed 248 vehicles.
And we've had a very low snow winter in the upper Midwest.
Towed 248 vehicles at a total of at least $230 each, which is absolutely insane. So 248 times, what did I say, 230? Doing quick math because I don't want to count. 248 times 230, that is $57,000 they just made.
And that's since when? Like, when did that go into effect?
This morning.
Since this morning.
This morning at 3 a.m. until 7 a.m. So in 4 hours, 248 vehicles at a $150 fee, a ticket, and then a storage fee to total $230.
So assuming that you go get it tomorrow.
If every single person went and got their vehicle today or tomorrow, the city's going to make $57,000 off of this in 4 hours.
Just because of the type of weather that could potentially happen.
Not even the type of weather. It has nothing to do with the weather.
Well, it's the timing, but they're doing it based on the fact that it's winter. Whether there's snow or not, it's winter now.
That is December 1st. That's the reason.
That's it.
That's it.
Not whether snow actually happens. not whether or not they actually need to clear those roads. None of that. It's based purely on, well, it's December, it's now winter, it might snow at some point, so therefore, within the next 4 hours, you're going to tow 300
248 vehicles. 248 vehicles in 4 hours.
And it's towed in the middle of the night, which means all these people wake up to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And
without a vehicle.
They just don't have a car.
Yep. $150 towing fee, $60 ticket, and $20 storage fee.
And again, that's assuming everyone has the money to go get their cars out of impound first thing in the morning, Monday morning, which most of them don't. I can almost guarantee you. So it's going to be even more than that.
Even more reason to oppose that money lending bill that we were discussing before. We'll probably get to later. Which I think we're gonna bring it up right after this, actually, because it kind of parallels. I mean, these aren't people that can afford, parking and garages. Like these aren't people in upper class neighborhoods with 3-car garages or driveways and things like that. No, they're parked on the side of the road, which you're taxed for maintenance, right? And to who build the roads, right? And then you're taxed for the police, and you're taxed for the parking, and you're taxed for the tow trucks to pay for it, the city tow trucks and the city impound lots. And then they tow your vehicle, and then you have to pay for that also. But you're free. You're free. Yep.
You're paying the people who are coming and doing all of the ticketing and towing and everything else with your taxes as well.
Yep. But you're totally free, you guys. Absolutely fucking free.
If this lands in between paychecks and you don't have the money.
Today's the 1st, like rent's due.
Yeah. If this isn't something that you have the money for, out of nowhere to suddenly pay that kind of money, $250, well, then your car's just sitting there, and it's racking up fees.
Accumulating a $20 storage fee per day. So if you wait a week, if you wait 7 days, like if your payday's not till Friday, right? Today's Sunday, your payday's not till Friday. What's that, 5 days, 6 days? At 20, you're looking at another $100 or $120.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at $330.
And if eventually it gets high enough and it sits there long enough, the city then gets to auction your car and pocket the proceeds.
Mm-hmm. And you better hope it covers that bill too, or they'll still send you that.
Yep.
Well.
Yeah, and believe me, when it's Chicago, they will send debt collectors after you for you not paying their fees. They'll suspend your license if you don't pay any outstanding fees. So now, not only do you not have a car, but you can't even buy a new one because you can't use it because you don't have a driver's license anymore. Like, you can't even borrow a car. So now what are you going to do? And now you're forced to rely on public transportation. You're forced to rely on the government more.
Yep, but you're free. You're absolutely fucking free.
Yeah.
And the police work for you, and
protect and serve.
Yeah. Fucking all right. But the article the other article I mentioned about the payday loans. Andrew, tell them what you do, real quick about that.
I assistant manage a couple of locations for that do short-term lending, so payday loans and stuff like that. So I'm in that industry already.
Federal lawmakers aim to reduce payday loan rates from 400% interest to 36%. Tens of millions of Americans are turning to high-cost loans that routinely carry interest rates more than $400 for everyday expenses, such as paying the bills and covering emergency expenses, like having your vehicle towed. For many, those rates may end up being just too high and lead to a seemingly endless debt cycle. But that may soon change. This week, 5 members of Congress plan to introduce federal legislation that would ban these sky-high rates on a variety of consumer loans, including payday loans. Instead, The Veterans and Consumers Fair Credit Act and the House would cap interest rates at 36% for all consumers. Notice how they throw veterans on the front of it?
Yeah, they want to focus on, even though the majority of veterans actually don't do this at all and have nothing to do with it. That's
yeah. And then it's a bipartisan bill. Representative Glenn Grothman, Republican out of Wisconsin. Jesus Garcia, Democrat out of Illinois, co-sponsors the legislation in the House, while Senators Brown, Democrat out of Ohio, Reed, Democrat out of Rhode Island, and Merkley, oh, he's a fun guy, out of Oregon, are simultaneously introducing a parallel bill in the Senate. The bipartisan legislation is built off the framework of the 2006 Military Lending Act, which capped loans at 36% for active duty service. Okay, jumble. BS.
So there's not a whole lot of important crap in that article for the most part, from what I saw. What's important is what they're saying is with this law is they want to ban.
Yes. That's the article. The paragraph says yet payday loans are an accessible option for those who may have poor or no credit that might not get approved by a traditional bank. Payday loans can also be cheaper than other credit card options such as overdrafts. If your bank assesses an average fee of $35 on an overdraft purchase of $100, you're paying an APR well over 12,700%. Keep in mind that the median amount overdrafted is much less, about $40. Plus, many banks will charge an overdraft fee for every purchase that hits while your checking account is overdrawn. So, yeah, that's what it comes down to is the people that use these payday loans, they can't go to banks.
Well, and even
they can't get approved for credit cards.
And even if they could go to a bank, banks don't do microloans anymore. No. So if you only need, I need to, I'm $200 short on my rent. Well, you can't go to a bank and say, can I just get a loan for $200? They're not going to do that. Or, I only need $500 for the next 2 months and then it'll all be paid back. Banks aren't going to do that. That isn't an option.
It's not worth their time and money because there's not enough in it for them.
Yeah, they're not going to make anything on it because their interest rates, even if their interest rate is 36%, a 36% interest rate, for an APR, an annual percentage rate, a 36% interest rate for a year, if you're paying it off in 2 months, they're making almost nothing. And once you factor in all of the ancillary costs of that loan, they're making nothing and actually losing money on that. So they're not going to give you that loan.
Yeah. More than 23 million people relied on at least one payday loan last year.
23 million people that they want to basically say, because the reality is, with whether you like the idea of being charged a 365 or 400 and whatever percent interest rate, APR, the reality is, one, that's a really misleading number because the reality is if it's a payday loan, you're only taking that loan for 2 weeks, which means what you're paying back is not actually that much money. What you're paying back is a very tiny amount of money in comparison. But if you factor that in, because that's the way annual percentage rates get calculated, the people, including these politicians, don't seem to get is it's calculated as annual. That's the first letter in APR, annual percentage rate. But you're not taking it out for a year. You're only taking it out for a short span of time. So you're not actually paying. Your interest isn't actually accruing for a year. Your interest is only accruing for 2 weeks until you get paid again, or for if you're on Social Security or disability for a month at most, until you get paid again. And if you're in, and most payday loan places do it as a flat rate. So they have X amount of dollars per however much. It's usually per 50. So they say it's going to be, $10 per 50 or $12 per 50 or whatever. And that's what you're borrowing. Well, they still have to tell you what that annual percentage rate is because the federal government cares. So that APR, if you're only borrowing, so much money, you're only borrowing $300 and you're only doing it for 2 weeks, that APR looks astronomical. But the reality is you're not paying back any more than 30, 40, $50, and that $50, that's on like $600. So you're paying $50 back on a $600 loan. That's not actually that much, but they don't care because they're just looking, oh, what is it? But it's a 300% APR. Well, but you're not paying back 300% of what you borrowed.
You don't have the loan for a year. That's what it comes down to. You don't have the loan for a year.
And
right.
If you
have it for 2 weeks or a month, or heaven forbid a little bit longer, but these numbers are hugely misleading. And as the article says, 23 million people rely or use this service last year at least once. Lots of, or I would not say lots of them, but probably a good portion of them used it more than once.
Yeah, a lot of people do. You have a lot of repeats, and the thing is 23 million people who either just needed money for such a short amount of time that a bank wasn't an option, and they didn't want to use their credit card cash advance option if they even had it. If they can even get a credit card, it's either that it's such a short amount of time, or it's such a small amount of money, or they don't have the credit. And what you're doing by saying, well, it has to be 36%, is you're making the business environment for people who are doing microloans and short-term loans now, you're making it impossible for them to survive, because the high percentage rates are commensurate with the amount of risk that those businesses are going into, where they're going to have bad debt of 40%. Think about the average business that had bad debt of 40%, where 40% of all of the money that it should take in, it never takes in. The only way that it's going to survive is if it's taking in enough money from the 60% or 50% or whatever that it is getting to survive on. And not only just survive on, but also have enough money in the case of a loan place that it then also has enough money to loan back out.
Yeah, and let's we could go into another angle on this, is that there's enough market demand that there is, according to this article, 23,000 payday loan vendors in the United States. That is almost twice as many as there are McDonald's. So that's your market demand. There's a huge market demand for this service, and the government wants to literally put it in a chokehold.
Yeah, they want to drive all of those businesses completely out of business, because the reality is that 36%, the only way that you survive in that market space at that point, doing that service, is now you have to adopt the same credit rulings to try and become averse enough to risk that you can stay in business. Now you're going to have to adopt the same credit rules that banks have, which are the same people that these people who are coming to these services already can't get loans through. So now you're telling them, oh, sorry there, Mrs. Wilson, who's living on Social Security and can't get loans from anybody or credit cards or anything else. Sorry about the fact that your hot water heater went out. You're not going to be able to get the money to fix that at all until your next check, which is in a month, because, well, unfortunately, we just don't want you to have to pay back too much money, more money than the government thinks you should have to pay back.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
Let's not negate the fact that this is an entirely voluntary interaction.
Yeah, and not only is it entirely voluntary, but most payday lenders, I can't say all because there are a couple of exceptions out there. Well, we're out there. They're not anymore. That's almost $3 billion worth of fines from the SEC, and FCC will kind of do that. But the or FTC, sorry. But the majority of payday lenders already have laws in place. And even if they didn't, they would do it anyway, just because it's good business practice, that state that your contract that you have somebody sign must legally be able to be understood by a below average intelligence and education consumer. Not an average, a below average. So a dumb person literally has to be able to get this. It has to be spelled out that simply. And we're legally required, when we give those loans, to go through the TILA boxes, Truth in Lending Act, that spell out, here's how much you're borrowing. Here's the amount that you're paying back. Here's what that means your APR is, your annual percentage rate, which is irrelevant in most cases, but we still got to point it out. So that you understand all of that, we have to point it out to you. The contract has to be super explicit. These people are fully aware of what contract they're going into. They're fully aware of what they're doing, but they agree to do it anyway because they have no other alternative. There's no one else in that market. There's no other way they would get this money, and they need it. The very large majority of those 23 million people who took advantage of at least one payday loan, they did it because they had no choice. They had to have the money. They needed a car fix. They needed hot water heater. They needed they needed school supplies for their kids coming up on school. They were coming up on, Christmas shopping and they hadn't saved anything, or they're in between, Christmas is going to land right in between paychecks that have to go to rent or a car payment. These aren't people who have lots of money sitting around. These are people who are living paycheck to paycheck just barely. And now you're going to take away any option that they have to actually survive a major financial difficulty because, well, I don't like the sound of that annual percentage rate.
Yeah.
What? I mean, it's insane. Can you imagine it is the equivalent of telling an insurance company that, well, you're not allowed to disqualify people.
Yeah, how did that work out for the Obamacare prices, you guys? How affordable was that?
Yeah. Well, what are they going to do now? Well, now they got to jack up prices ridiculously because it's not like people want to suddenly not make money. This isn't a charity. This is a business. That's
what is it? What is it? A 501(c)(3)? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, and that's the thing is these aren't not for profits. These things exist to make money for people.
Yeah, it's not the church of payday loan, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And it's ridiculous. This is a service that clearly a huge number of people are taking advantage of.
23 million people used it at least once. What is that, like 8% of the population, something like that?
Yeah, it's pretty significant. Probably more people than tune into the Super Bowl would be my guess.
Wasn't Obamacare justified because 10 million people didn't have insurance?
Yeah. It was something like 10 or 12.
So twice as many people use this service as didn't have insurance under Obamacare? Or didn't have insurance that was used as justification for Obamacare?
Yeah. And that was and now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to make it impossible for these companies to do any business and survive because, government knows best. You people who are already using it, you companies you don't know what you should do. No. You don't know what's best here. Only government does. Government should make those decisions.
God, Bitcoin's looking better and better.
And imagine if, let's say hypothetically that it's your buddy who's lending you money and your buddy goes, hey, look, I want a loan back. I'm giving you this loan until your next paycheck, but I want it back with interest. Now, well, it's kind of a dick move, but okay, let's say that he does and you agree to it. And he says, well, I want you're borrowing $300. I want $350 back. That is a reasonable thing, especially if you really need the money. And he's already loaned money to a bunch of other friends who have never come back and paid him back. So that's why he wants the $350.
Yeah, it's not like you guys are the mafia, out there breaking people's legs and and kneecapping them and.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, loan sharks are definitely more effective at debt collection. But I mean, and that's the thing, is this is being slapped on top of every other law that already governs that industry. There are
Which are a lot.
So many. There's the Fair Credit Practices Act, the Fair Debt Collection Act, the FCA, the FDCPA, the TILA, Truth in Lending Act. There's the I can't remember. There's like at least 9 major acts that all already govern all of this on a federal level, plus more than 200 on average on a state level. This is already more regulated than like the average hospital by major legislation. And yet now they want to throw, they want to kneecap us, is essentially what it is. And take that option away from people who can't afford that option to go away. It's, I mean, you know, if you're on Social Security, and that's the other thing, is if you're on, the people who are going to be disproportionately affected by this are especially people on disability and Social Security. They're people who are already very low income, already don't have any spare money, are already at risk of losing everything from one small financial disaster. And you
like
want
having your car towed because
like
parked at 3 a.m. on the side of the road.
Exactly. And that one disaster now they can't even recover the money for as an emergency to try and get it taken care of. Or what about the 20-year-old kid who's only been working at this job for a couple of months, and now his car got towed, or now his car broke down. It's his only way to work. He doesn't have the money until next paycheck.
Say you need books for college before your grant money comes in.
Right, you need books for college, or you've been injured in an accident, you're waiting on insurance to finally pay out, and you got bills stacking up because you haven't been to work.
Oh, Jesus Christ, it took like 8 fucking months to get money from that.
Yeah, it takes forever. Even if you and don't sit there and tell me Aflac, because Aflac specifically writes in any average activity that you do as an exclusion for their coverage.
Yeah.
Like, I heard about a guy who's a
Aflac is shyster, man.
Oh yeah, I heard about a guy who's a professional, like an over the road trucker, and they wrote into the exclusions of his Aflac policy any auto accident. And I'm like, you're an over the road trucker. How long on average do you spend outside of a vehicle that this would actually cover you then? I mean, basically never.
No.
And so if you're that guy and you got conned by Aflac and now you have no money and you can't work, what are you going to do to get those bills covered until that insurance or that short-term disability comes in or something? You have no option if these people have their way, because there's nobody's going to do it. Because if the people who are in that industry, if we decide that now, well, in order to protect ourselves from undue bad debt and risk, we're going to up all of our credit policies to match credit cards and banks, the same people who can't go to a bank for a loan, the same people who can't use a cash advance on their credit card, now also can't come to us and get that money, which means no one will give them that money. Which means that then, who are they going to turn to for help?
Yeah. Black market.
Yeah, they're going to go to loan sharks. They're going to they're going to steal things. They're going to, if they're, not inclined to go there, they're going to go to the government and say, help, daddy government. I can't afford these things. Give me monies. Gosh, it's almost like that's a bigger plan.
Oh my God, what is it? It's called the Cloward Piven strategy. Fucking look it up. That's CLOWARD PIVEN. Yeah. All right. We beat that horse. All right. U.S. Secret Service wants schools to treat unhappy students as potential violent threats.
So literally the entire student population.
Yeah. So that's totally going to help a student that's sad and depressed. Quote, Secret Service research findings indicate that target school violence is preventable, writes U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center Director James Murray in a new NTAC report. All schools have to do is treat any student in any sort of distress as a potential danger to everyone else and respond accordingly. That sounds nice, but the plan completely ignores the potential of traumatizing innocent students. The quote, Protecting America's Schools, a U.S. Secret Service analysis of targeted school violence. Report advocates for schools throughout the country to adopt violent prevention strategies that are heavily focused on monitoring students for behavioral issues and encouraging others in the school system to anonymously report behavior they deem, quote unquote, concerning.
Make sure that you denounce your neighbor, comrade.
Yes.
Counter-revolutionary.
Yes. The 35-page report analyzes 41 incidents of, quote, targeted school violence that occurred at K through 12 schools throughout the country from 2008 to 2017. NTAC defines, quote, targeted school violence as, quote, any incident in which a current or former K through 12 school student purposely used a weapon to cause physical harm to or the death of at least one other student and or school employee in or on the immediate property of the school while targeting in advance one or more specific and or random students and or employees.
So basically even like gang beefs that happen on school grounds also get counted. Suicides could potentially also get counted.
The NTAC reports that, quote, the threshold for intervention should be low so that schools can identify students in distress before their behavior escalates to the level of eliciting concerns about safety. The report also found most of the attackers had experienced some sort of bullying at school and had displayed, quote, observable mental health symptoms, such as signs of depression or suicidal thoughts before the rampage. Gee, this student looks depressed and is being bullied. Hey, maybe we should monitor him like he's some sort of fucking psycho just in case he wants to shoot up the school. I don't know. It's like people that are bullied and get bullied by the system, they react. I don't think that's a good idea. Adding to the bullying by more bullying is just yeah. One of NTAC's recommendations is for school to adopt the threat prevention measure the Secret Service outlined in the 2018. Why is the Secret Service doing this? The Secret Service deals with what? Politician protection and money laundering, right? The Treasury and
and that was the thing.
Protection?
That was the thing that I was wondering is like, why does the Secret Service have anything to say about this? No. What does the SS have to do?
Oh, wait. Hold on. Before you go there, I know where you're going, but we have to finish this paragraph. Okay. The 2018 guide, quote, enhancing school safety using a threat assessment model, an occupational guide to preventing school violence. The 2018 guide planned for examining students' social media posts, searching through their desks at school, and monitoring how students are handling breakups. The NTAC says its new study isn't intended to provide a perfect psychological or behavioral profile of students who might commit an act of violence. And while it does not outright state that students who are depressed or have been victims of bullying are likely to commit acts of violence, it does list a, quote, depressed mood as a red flag. That's so vague that even a student having a bad day can be viewed as a potential threat, let alone a student who's clinically depressed or is the victim of harassment.
The thing that one, I mean, I think we can all agree that unhappy students in public schools are basically
everywhere.
Student.
Suicides among students or among school age kids, I want to say that the number goes up like 120% once school starts. Like between when school starts and Christmas, it goes up like 120%. As opposed to in the summertime, and then it drops off as the school year goes on. But when kids are in school, the suicide rate is so much higher just because of everything that goes on at school.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest thing for me with this whole bill, or this whole study and this recommendation and shit, is that one, again, it's the SS,
Secret Service,
the Secret Service, that's doing this and have no business doing it. But gosh, it's almost like alphabeties just cannot keep their noses out of anything. And two, you'll notice that what were we just talking about with the red flag laws, right? Where all it takes is, and where they've had these red flag orders for 5-year-olds, and because somebody pointed at somebody and everything else. Now it's, well, anyone who's unhappy in school should be treated as a possible threat. Tie that in very easily with red flag laws, and all of the sudden, unless you are an emotionless robot in school, your family is going to lose their guns.
It calls for examining students' social media posts and monitoring how students are handling breakups.
Why is that anyone's business? So if you're a teenager who has a bad breakup, I realize that's super rare and very uncommon that teenagers would get emotional over some sort of a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend. They're usually so rational and, critically thinking about that whole thing. Those
15, 16, 17-year-old hormones, and you break up with little Susie Q after playing some stink finger. Like, you just bounce to the next one. You're totally happy, right?
No, there's no serious issues there at all. No, see, like, I realize that may be shocking, that teenagers might be an emotional wreck. But now what this is saying is, hey, teachers, go ahead and get over involved in stalking your students online. Make sure that while they're already in a really emotional state, that you then pull them into an office and confront them as if they're a violent threat. And then when they inevitably respond going, what the hell is going on? Well, now that's proof. So now you need to throw them into counseling, get them on drugs, and make sure that you haul all of the guns out of their parents' house.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ultimate logic. What this is saying. It's just... What?
Yes, Mrs. Crabapple, I'm handling the breakup fine. I'm okay, I swear.
If you have kids in public school, one, get them the hell out. And seek a private alternative that's not a communist indoctrination camp. Yeah, homeschool if you can. A lot of people can't. They can't afford it because the government steals half of your income. So I understand not being able to afford that. Get them into a private institution, something. But make sure that you're doing something, if they are in a public school, to warn them, hey, do not talk to your teachers about anything outside of the current lesson. Do not interact with anyone at school while you're at school, because they're going to point fingers at you the moment that they can, because that is the road that we're going down. You're going to have to warn your kids, hey, you need to make sure that you're like just answering questions and nothing else. Volunteer no personal information whatsoever. Ever. Like, no, that's what the world that we've come to. That is where we're at now. is if you are in a public space, you are expected to be an emotionless, opinionless robot. And that's it. I mean, can you imagine, like, if this goes into practice?
And you can't even do that, because if you're an emotionless, opinionless robot, that's a red flag to them. So you're screwed either way.
Yeah, there is no, now it's all about it's spying on absolutely everyone.
And that's Jimmy's acting so cold.
Yeah, exactly. And but I mean, the thing is it's all about getting kids. If you look at school, especially with things like this being said, saying, hey, monitor your students' Facebook pages and things, it's about getting them used to a surveillance police state where their every move is monitored and dictated. Their every thought and emotion is monitored and either approved or disapproved and then re-educated. Gosh, it's almost like Orwell was right.
Orwell was absolutely right. He just got the year wrong.
Yeah. He was, a few decades off, but he was spot on with what was coming. Spot on, because that's exactly where we're headed now. This is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Well, I mean, it was 9/11 was what, 17 years? Yep. 17 years after 1984? 16 years after, or 17 years after 1984? Yep.
Yeah,
and most kids today, like every kid that's in school right now, has never lived in a non-monitored police state.
Yeah, none of them. They don't remember what a I mean, kids who were in school weren't alive yet. Yeah. They weren't alive yet when 9/11 happened, so they have never lived in a world without the Patriot Act, without constant spying, without indefinite detention. They have no idea what the real world used to be like.
Quick fun fact on the Patriot Act. Donald Trump just used it to indefinitely detain a foreign immigrant, and he is the first person to use the Patriot Act for that purpose.
There's a surprise.
Yep. Bush didn't use it. Obama didn't use it. Trump did.
He's the most libertarian president ever. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's all of this is adding up to basically the goal here is to get kids totally used to being perpetually monitored, disciplined if they are not in any way just expressing happiness about how government is running and everything else. Get them used to, hey, no, we have to report our fellow students, make sure that you tell on your neighbors. It's setting up because they realize that when they tried to just thrust people into that, like the Soviet Union did, like Nazi Germany did, like Mao's China did, when you do that, people tend to fight back. They rail against it. But if you very, very slowly, if you boil the frog and you very slowly turn that heat up, they don't notice what's happening. And then they just get used to it. And by the time they're boiled, they don't ever have a chance to realize that they're being boiled.
Yeah. Would you even call it a school to prison pipeline?
Yeah, although the prison is everywhere.
Okay, how about Americans shelling out staggering $4.12 billion to incarcerate innocent men and women since 1989? That's a rocky segue, but okay, I'll take it.
Billion with a B.
Yeah, $4.12 billion to incarcerate innocent men and women since 1989. Since 1999, 2,515 women have been exonerated after proving their innocence. So that's 2,515. That's what, 100 a year, 100 more than just over 100 a year
per year, every year.
Mm-hmm. For the last 20 years.
Yeah, for the last 2 decades, per year, every year, more than 100 people.
3 decades, 89, 99, 09, 19. Fuck, we're old. Last 30 years.
Oh, crap. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right.
We're old. All right, so last 30 years, 2,515 men and women have been exonerated after proving their innocence. In total, among the exonerees, Americans have shelled out a staggering $4.12 billion to incarcerate innocent men and women. Large money is largely spent on trials and the cost of housing inmates in prison. According to the Bureau of Prisons, in the fiscal year 2017, the average cost to house a prisoner was over $36,000 a year at federal facilities. Black men make up a majority of the wrongfully convicted, approximately 49%. And since 1999, taxpayers have wasted $944 million to incarcerate black men and women who have later been found innocent. The number climbs to $1.2 billion when you include Hispanic men and women. In 2019 alone, Americans shelled out nearly $79 million for a combined 105 people that were exonerated this year. On the average, from the time a person enters the criminal justice system until they are exonerated, $1.26 million is spent per inmate who is facing the death penalty. In cases where there is no capital punishment charge, the cost drops to $740,000. With 123 exonerated inmates previously on death row, roughly $155 million was spent on incarcerating them. An average of $1.7 billion was spent to incarcerate the remaining 2,392 people that weren't facing the death penalty. In total, before compensation was factored in, just under $2 billion was spent to imprison innocent people. That is your justice system, America.
Justice, quote unquote. And the thing is, I mean, all of these people are that we're talking about that we spent $4 billion on are the proven
22,315 years lost by exonerees.
So thousands of years of lost life and productivity.
22,000.
Okay, tens of thousands of years.
The average
lost
the average exoneree spent 8 years and 10 months.
Oh, but as long as you're innocent, then you have nothing to worry about, right?
Right? Yeah, that's right. Just take your chances with or don't resist.
Don't resist. Just take your chances in court.
Take your chances with court. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
And lose 9 years of your life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about that too. Like, the majority of these people, if you look at the cases, and I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people have looked at quite a few of them and have seen quite a few of them lately, but because the Innocence Project, also a Wisconsin export, you're welcome.
Thank you for that one for sure.
Yeah, that's also a Wisconsin thing. But they're really vocal about it and stuff. But what I think what's important that people need to realize is if you look at it, most of them did not have their own lawyers. They had public defenders, and who pays the public defenders? Oh, wait, it's the courts. So the police who arrested them are paid by the courts. The judges who are judging the court are paid by the courts. The jury gets paid jury pay by the court. The prosecutor is paid by the court. Their lawyer was paid by the court. And you expect that to be fair.
Yeah. Go ask the chickens how the Fox trial went.
Exactly. And that's what it is. And now, after years and years of both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, bipartisanly supporting the justice system.
Let's not forget Joe Biden's contribution to the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Let's applaud him for that. And Kamala Harris's efforts to the war on drugs. Let's applaud her for that one. Yeah, because hiding evidence as the California Attorney General to keep innocent people in jail, that is just number one.
That is definitely somebody that you want in charge of your life. Clearly a trustworthy person with your best interests at heart.
Yes.
I mean, that's the justice system. It's all rigged against these people. And then now that there are people who are really actively fighting back against it and giving them no alternative but to admit that they fucked up, now all of a sudden it's coming out $4 billion in taxpayer money. That's your money, America. That's people that's money stolen from you to pay to put innocent people and hold innocent people in prison for more than 20,000 total added up years.
22,000. 22,000 stolen years.
22,000 stolen years, 4 billion stolen dollars. For what? So that prosecutor could say, well, look, I'm protecting your community. Look at my conviction rate.
Yeah.
So that those cops could pretend, look, we're doing our job so great because we arrested this guy and now he's been convicted. We got our man. Because none of it's security theater. It's that same thing over and over and over again. It's security theater. It's the illusion that they're doing something more to protect you than you could do yourself. They have to keep that illusion up, whether they're actually doing it or not. And they're paying for it all with your money.
Yep. To piggyback on that was a very good segue. Piggyback on that. A lot of these people get thrown in jail by cops at stops, right? Traffic stops. That, hey, do you have anything in the vehicle? Or, hey, I smell this. Or, hey, what do you got there, right? And they start fishing for evidence. Oregon Supreme Court bans police officers from asking random questions during traffic stops.
Oh, where are you coming from?
Yep.
Not relevant.
A recent ruling by the Oregon Supreme Court has banned a controversial policing practice. No longer can officers use a broken taillight or a failure to signal as justification for scouting a driver's car for illegal guns or drugs. The ruling instructs officers to stick to questions, quote, reasonably related to the reason the driver was pulled over, effectively ending law enforcement's ability to turn a routine traffic stop into a fishing expedition for a more serious offense. Law enforcement agencies contacted by the OPB are in a various stage of reviewing the ruling and creating new instructions for officers. While the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office and the Salem Police Department said they would both awaiting guidelines from the district and city attorneys, representatively, police departments in Beaverton and Grimshaw, as well as the Oregon State Police, were working on a training bulletin. The Portland Police Bureau said it's reviewing its training protocols and updating officers.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Yeah, you're getting right on that. They'll never violate that ruling. Nope.
Yeah. Quote, if a deputy pulls someone over for a traffic violation, walks up, smells the odor of alcohol, and sees bloodshot eyes, poor coordination in their hands, that would establish a reasonable suspicion for a DUI, says Sergeant Danny DePierto, a spokesman for the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Then they can inquire about that crime. But no longer can officers randomly segue into questions about the presence of guns or drugs. Quote, each officer or deputy in this case is going to have to change the way they conduct a traffic stop on a day-to-day basis. It's very significant.
Gosh, so what you're telling me is that that they are going to have to significantly alter a behavior that they were doing as a matter of course that a judge has just said is unconstitutional.
Yes. Absolutely unconstitutional. The decision stems from a case of Mario Batoli, who was pulled over by Beaverton police in 2015 for failing to signal at a turn. Botello consented to a search of his car, which is an absolute fucking retarded thing to do.
Ever consent.
Leading officers to discover a package of methamphetamine on the floor. Batoli's attorney, Joshua Crowther, argued the search of the car was unconstitutional because it was spawned by questions that went outside the scope of what police should be allowed to ask during a routine traffic stop. A trial court and the Oregon Court of Appeals had previously rejected the argument. Both courts cited procedure that officers could go off topic during an, quote, unavoidable lull in the interaction, which usually occurs when the driver was busy searching for their license and their registration. The Oregon Supreme Court saw it differently. Quote, put simply, an, quote, unavoidable lull does not create an opportunity for an officer to ask unrelated questions unless the officer can justify the inquiry on other grounds, the decision states. Civil
It's a
rights
violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Absolutely. The decision causes a loophole in the protection of our constitutional rights that police had been using to conduct warrantless searches, said Leland Baxter Neal, staff attorney with the ACLU of Oregon. Quote, and those searches had disproportionately targeted people of color, which the ACLU lawyer was going to go there.
Well, yeah, although they're not necessarily wrong either.
They're not necessarily wrong, but that's the direction they're
going.
Yeah,
they had to go. Although the ACLU did recently also stick up for gun rights, which was kind of slightly confusing to me. And I was like, really? That's clown world has gotten that bad that now even the ACLU is going, okay, seriously, we can't ignore this anymore. This is so unconstitutional. It's insane.
Yeah. Like, here's the best part. This is the best part in my opinion. A spokesman for the Oregon Department of Justice said the Oregon Supreme Court has the final authority on the case, and therefore the department is unable to appeal the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court.
It's not technically true. They don't actually know how the courts work, apparently. But
that's what it says.
I'm sorry, what?
Some police departments argued limiting small talk defies common sense and would needlessly stiffen an already tense interaction.
No, and it doesn't ban small talk at all. All that it does is say that you can't go on fishing expeditions with your questions. If you're standing there, if you are a pig and you are standing there next to somebody who's fishing for their license because you're looking for an opportunity to extort them, and it just says that you can't then go, oh, hey, by the way, do you have any guns or drugs in the car? You can't go, oh, so were you at that party up the road? You can't do that.
Yeah. How about that Ducks game?
Yeah, you could ask about sports games. Oh, man, it sure is cold for this time of year. Oh, gee, I hate this rain. Those are things that you can talk about. You're still allowed to make small talk. What you people are not defending is small talk. What you are defending is an unconstitutional violation of someone's Fourth Amendment right against illegal search and seizure. You are trying to search without any reason to search. And to that point, too, I mean, really, though, too, this is a good point to bring up. One, never consent to searches.
Never.
Ever. Never consent to a search. Under no circumstances should you consent to a search. And two, never volunteer information. Ever. Never volunteer information. If the cop casually asks you, because I guarantee you every other state is still going to keep doing this, and the cops there are still going to keep doing this.
Yep.
If they're like, oh, so do you have any guns or drugs in the car? I don't have to answer that.
Yep.
That's your response. I don't have to answer that. And if they're like, well, I'm going to bring the drug dog, then you can respond with, I don't have to wait. Supreme Court decision.
Yep.
I don't have to wait for it.
Most dog triggers aren't allowed in court anyway because it's not actual evidence.
Yeah, it's not reliable.
Mm-hmm. Same with breathalyzers. I'm telling you, we covered that last episode. Breathalyzers.
Yep.
Subpoena the maintenance logs.
Yep. Be like, hey, so when was the last time this was calibrated and maintained? And they'll be like, what?
No.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. What's the margin of error on this model?
Yep.
How many what's your record of false positives? When was the last time you tested it?
Same with radar guns. Subpoena the maintenance logs.
Don't make their lives easy and just acquiesce to crap. Like, be willing to fight it, because what they count on is that you're just going to acquiesce to all of their demands. You're just going to bow down and kowtow to them because they have their shiny metal badge. If you refuse to do that, most of the time they have no idea how to handle it. In fact, most of the time they're going to get aggressive, which is why you also always live stream film every cop interaction.
Yep. And go practice some paramilitary activities. All right. Cops put GPS tracker on a man's car and then charged him with theft for removing it. This is Warwick County. This is out of Indiana. That's right. 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that it's illegal for police to attach a GPS tracking device to someone's car without a warrant. But what if you find the GPS tracking device on your car? Can you remove it? A little more than a year ago, the state of Indiana charged a suspected a suspected drug dealer with theft for removing a government-owned GPS tracking device from his SUV. This month, the state Supreme Court began considering a case, and some justices seem skeptical of the government's argument.
I mean, the arrogance. We attached this thing to your car without your knowledge or permission, but you removed it, so now you're a thief.
Yes. The case began July 2018 when Warwick County Sheriff's Office got a warrant to attach a GPS tracking device to Derek Hearing's car. Information from a confidential informant. Stupid pop-up ads. Information from a confidential informant had led them to believe that Hearing was using the vehicle to sell meth. The GPS device transmitted data for a little more than a week, then it stopped. Officers suspecting Hearing had discovered and removed it. After waiting another 10 days to see if it would start working again, detectives applied for a warrant to search Hearing's home and nearby property belonging to Hearing's parents. U.S. law requires law enforcement to show probable cause that a crime had been committed before engaging in a search. In this case, the police said they suspected that Hearing had committed a crime of theft by taking the GPS device. Police did find the trafficking device. They also found methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia, evidence that police say showed Hearing had been dealing drugs. So Hearing was charged with both the drug dealing and the theft of the GPS device. Yeah, at trial, Hearing's legal team argued that the search had been illegal because the police did not have probable cause to believe the client had committed theft. The defense pointed out that the device could have fallen off the car by accident or simply malfunctioned. Which is a good angle to take. Which is,
a distinct possibility. It's entirely, I mean, the things are just magnetic. It's a strong magnet, but it's just magnetic. It could easily just come off or just break and just stop working, which means if they can quash the warrant because there was no actual suspicion, the police lied about their suspicion of it, then Poison Tree, any evidence obtained from that illegal search is now inadmissible, which means they have absolutely no case against him. Not to say that you should deal meth, because meth kills. You don't do meth. That's a bad thing. Do not do meth. Don't misunderstand. We're not saying do meth or meth dealers aren't terrible people, because I find that they are. But
yes. Let's see. An appellate court ruled against Hearing in July, leading the case to reaching the Indiana Supreme Court earlier this month. Initially, multiple justices seemed skeptical of the idea of taking a tracking device off your own car amounted to theft. Quote, if somebody wants to find me and do harm to me and it's not the police and they put a tracking device on my car and I find a tracking device and I dispose of it after stomping on it 25 times, I would hope they would not be able to go to a local prosecutor and somehow I'm getting charges filed against me for destroying someone else's property, Justice David said. A lawyer for the government acknowledged that it wouldn't be theft to remove a tracking device put there by a private party, but he argued that the things are different when the government has a warrant to use a tracking device.
It's not illegal when the president does it.
The device had a legal basis for being on the car, the lawyer argued. By removing it or preventing tracking, Hearing was depriving the government of its use of property.
So, wait. So if say hypothetically the police have a police drone and they're flying over my property and the drone malfunctions and crashes on my property and it's just there, and I say, no, you can't come on my property to retrieve your vehicle that you were flying over my property without permission, then am I depriving them of use of their property, and therefore I'm guilty of theft.
Depriving the government of use of its property. The property that you put on my property against my will.
Yeah. I would freaking argue that they effectively made it a gift. They gave it to him.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea.
They attached it to his car. That's a gift at that point. They gave that device to him to do with as he pleases. They willingly gave it to him. Although really what he should have done is removed it and then attached it to one of their vehicles.
Yeah, a riverboat. Yeah. The device had a legal basis for being on the car. It's as if that somehow like justifies everything.
Well, but we had reason to suspect that he was doing something illegal, so we had justification to attach a monitoring device
based on the word of a confidential informant.
Yeah, a confidential informant whose identity we conveniently can't reveal for his protection.
Who associates with meth dealers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a gold star reputation there, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's oh my god. Like so I mean, so the blow by blow is so they have a meth addict, because I think we can assume that he's probably an addict.
Absolutely a meth addict that was busted and flipped on homie for reduced sentence.
So we have a meth addict who's under duress, fingering this guy as being the one who he got the meth from. They then attach a GPS tracker, willingly themselves attach a GPS tracker to his vehicle. This guy then finds an unauthorized device.
Using the absolute honorable word of the meth addict. As justification for getting the warrant.
Right. So the meth addict said so we're going to attach this.
So still zero evidence.
Right. So we're going to attach the GPS. Guy who is accused of a crime by a meth addict then finds this device, removes it. Like, what the hell is this? Takes it off of his car, leaves it in his house, and then that's somehow, in their view, justification for them to kick in his door, charge him with drug possession, do a search of the house, charge him with drug possession, and theft of the device that they put on the car at the word of the meth head.
This is the worst episode of Dick Tracy ever.
Yeah, like, this is... what?
Barney Fife is going, what? What?
I mean, that's something that Barney Fife would do, though. And Andy would be like, Barney, what is wrong with you?
It's like a bad episode of Three Stooges.
It is.
I think the meth addict should cite civil asset forfeiture and claim ownership now of the device.
No. See, we suspected that this was placed here illegally, and so we took ownership of it based on that suspicion, and so it's mine now.
That's what it is. It's like when civil asset forfeiture, when they go to court, it's like the people versus the money or people versus the vehicle, right? That's their justification for taking the vehicle. That's he needs to go to court as meth dealer versus GPS device
versus GPS
and confiscate it. Sell it at a police auction. Sell it back to him.
Well, remember, like a year ago or something, there was that guy who did the same, where he found the GPS tracker and then tried to sell it on eBay.
God.
Like, he listed it on eBay for sale, and the cops had to intervene and go admit that, yes, they had been covertly tracking him. And I think the reason he wasn't charged with anything is because they didn't even have a warrant. Like, they had no reason to have put it on there except slight suspicion. And so then they had just to save face, had just kind of let that go and just took it back. And it's like, that's what he should have done, is he should have sold it, or again, either put it on one of their vehicles, put it on a squad, or chucked it in a river or something. Because what would they have done had they not found it?
I don't know.
Because if they go in there under, oh, well, he took it, and then they can't ever prove that he took it, they have no proof that the warrant is justified. And then his case is that much stronger that everything should be quashed.
Yep. Got to add it to the list. Don't talk to cops. Record interactions. Don't keep devices that you find on your vehicle that may have been put there by the police.
Yeah, don't ever keep those. Toss them in a trash can. Do something to get rid of them. Give them to a homeless guy to disassemble. And find something to make them disappear where you are no longer tied to that device. If the GPS device is still active, find a squad car to attach it to.
Yeah. Drop it on the Ferris wheel. Let it go with the carnies.
That would be hilarious. Seems like he's gone out of town. He seems to be going down the eastern seaboard on the carnival circuit. I don't understand. Although he might be. He is a meth dealer. So
that's yeah.
Sorry, alleged meth dealer.
Alleged meth dealer, yes.
Yeah. There's no proof of that. No legal proof.
Mm-hmm.
It's only alleged.
And again, still no victim.
Yeah, and even if he was a meth dealer, well, I will argue that makes him morally a terrible person because he's selling poison to people.
Terrible people have rights too.
Yeah, he's just because he's a terrible person who's selling something to people that, you know what, those people have every right to decide what they're going to put in their bodies, and he has every right to sell something that is poisonous to people, especially if they're well aware that it's poisonous, which they are.
Fast food kills more people than meth. So
I always argue that though. Like when I eat an entire pan of brownies. Well, I mean, I could be doing meth, so and sit there and tell me, oh, that's unhealthy. Well, it's not meth.
Know what else is unhealthy? Bitching about my brownies.
When I used to smoke, when I was a smoker, I had a T-shirt that said "Surgeon General's warning: harassing me about my smoking may be hazardous to your health." I was so sick. You know that's unhealthy for you? Gosh, is it? I hadn't read any of the warnings all over all of the packages or seen any of the commercials when I was a kid or the billboards. I completely missed all that. I have, in fact, been living under a rock for the past 25 years. And had no idea.
Yeah, totally been growing and rolling my own.
Yeah, so I had absolutely no clue that this was unhealthy. Thank you, strange, random person who decided to annoy the crap out of me, for warning me. You saved my life. I will quit immediately. Like, come on. Shut up.
All right, how about we move on to this feel-good story about a guy who's literally the complete opposite of a meth dealer.
We doing feel-good stuff?
Yeah, it's that time of the year. Like, we do negative stories. Well, not really. We didn't really do any negative stories, but we did. I want to throw in a good one once in a while, you know. Yeah. So I'm gonna do a feel-good post. It's Son continues, quote, Mountain Santa tradition of giving. Some people believe Christmas decorations should go up only after Thanksgiving, but don't tell that to the people on Santa Lane. Jordan Howard, who has lived on the street in Harlan County, Kentucky, has been decorating and wrapping presents since Halloween. Howard will soon dress up like Santa Claus and deliver the presents to children he doesn't even know. It's a tradition he calls Mountain Santa, and it started with his father. For 42 years, Mike Howard collected Christmas presents and bring them to children who otherwise might not get any. After he passed away, his son decided to continue the tradition. 8 months after his dad lost his battle with cancer, Howard's mother died. So this Christmas, he's dressing up like Mountain Santa to honor both of them. Quote, Dad told me before he passed, he said, you got to have the Lord in it, so that's what I'm doing, Jordan told CBS affiliate, blah, blah, blah. As in mid-October, Howard and the community members have wrapped about 1,000 presents for children in need, and that's about half the number that they will do in total. Quote, everything's still coming together, Howard said, adding that he hopes to give out up to 3,500 presents, starting with his first one December 14th. Having a community help him continue the tradition means a lot to Howard. Quote, "It's a feeling that you just can't describe. You don't think the community would come together like they have, but they just keep doing it. This is awesome. It's something fantastic."
So you'll never leave the county alive, but at least you'll get a Christmas present.
Yeah, Harlan County, Harlan County, Kentucky. Yeah. Harlan County, Kentucky is like really, really poor. And some of these kids up on the mountain, they just wouldn't get any.
Well, most mountain communities in the Appalachians are pretty poor. There's not a lot of economic prospects. There's not a lot there. Family, the collective income. I mean, even in a 2 working parent household is probably, way below federal poverty level. Mm-hmm. It's not much. They don't have a lot. So this means a ton to them. And they don't get any royalties from the Patty Loveless song that I just referenced. So
yeah, wrapped 1,000 presents since Halloween. And
it's all charity. It's all just willingly they want to do it because it's the right thing to do, and
entirely voluntary.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of sad that people only do stuff like that around Christmas, but at least it's something. I mean, Christmas is a huge event, especially in religious communities like you find in the Appalachian Mountains. It's a big thing, and they get a present out of it. I mean, even if their parents could only give them, like mud or something, like, "Hey, we gave you a third-hand, slightly less dirty shirt there, Riley." Yep. Like, even if that's all they got, he's bringing presents to him. He's Mountain Santa.
Yeah, his dad did this for 42 years.
Man, that's a long time to be doing that.
It's longer than either one of us have been alive.
That's a long time to be delivering presents to underprivileged children. Santa Claus, he really should just rock the Santa Claus look, because he'd blend in with that area of the country. No one would even notice.
Yeah, you and I have both been exceptionally poor, so
yeah,
and we know what a little bit of kindness means.
Yeah, even just a little bit. I mean, if like we do, like around here, we have the Toys for Tots drive. I think they do that most places. And then there's also, they do like big bikes for little tykes that the local motorcycle clubs put on, where they all ride together and raise money to.
Yeah, we have the Hells Angels out here that do it.
Yep, and their rivals, their direct enemies, the Outlaws, are in Wisconsin. It's their headquarters, Milwaukee.
Yeah, last year, Hells Angels walked into a Walmart. I think it was a Walmart, and they bought like every bike on the shelf. And took them down to a Toys for Tot thing and donated them.
Yeah, and we have all those drives and stuff, and like it's such a simple gesture. Realistically, like, you're already buying, probably, if you're a well-to-do person or you're a person who has a lick of money, you're already buying presents for kids anyway. You buy that one extra present and donate it, and it's an extra, $10, 15, maybe if you're going really crazy, 40. You're spending on it, and out of all the money that you spend on Christmas. And then you can donate it to somebody, and somebody who's got absolutely nothing can then give a present to their kid. They're getting something still for Christmas, even when they have no other way to give anybody anything. I mean, it's, you talked about us being really poor. I am really poor still. So yeah, I am really, really poor. Like, that everybody's getting handmade Christmas presents this year because I can't afford to buy anybody anything. So we
a 5.56 wind chime.
Yeah, just empty brass hanging on. I already give a buddy of mine all of my empties so he can reload them. But but I mean, just those tiny little gestures mean so much to people. And this guy, I mean, you're now looking at, how long ago did his dad die and he took over?
His dad died last year, and then his mom died a few months after that.
So 43 years this has been happening,
Yeah.
43 years, which means there are people there who probably living in that area. Because again, I mean, that song isn't entirely wrong. Like, no one really leaves Harlan because you can't afford to. You're stuck there. That's coal country, man. You're stuck there forever. And there are probably a lot of people there who almost every Christmas present they got was from this guy's dad bringing them a present. That's the only reason they got Christmas presents.
Yep. And now, not only brought to them, but also brought it to their kids. Like this is the multi-generational. I mean, 42 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Dad did this.
Theoretically, there could be grandkids now getting.
When you're in the coal country and you're bored,
yeah,
there absolutely could be some grandkids getting presents this year.
Yeah, grandkids of people who got presents from this guy's dad. The kids got presents from this guy's dad, and now the grandkids are getting presents from him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hell of a legacy to leave behind in a community like that. That you were Santa Claus, bringing presents to everybody. I doubt he had a list though of all of the naughty and nice. Although in a town that small, you probably could.
You probably knew.
Yeah. You knew. But giving them coal is even more superfluous around that area of the country. Like, well, I just got rocks. What? This is just lying around.
So
give me anything. Give me a bag of dirt.
Yep. Be the change. Be the change you wish to see.
Yeah. Nobody's making him. Government's not doing anything. This is private philanthropy. This is individuals just deciding, I want to do this. I want to do something special for people because it's the right thing to do.
Because he felt in his heart that it's what he needed to do, or what he wanted to do. Like, not even need to do. It's what he wanted to do, so he did it.
Yeah. And think of how life-changing that was, for not just for the kids that he was doing it for, but for him to be doing that now that he's got. I mean, even once he retired and everything, he's still got something, to look forward to and to keep working at all the time. And when people start to get up there in age and they're retired, and boredom kills.
Yeah.
But if they got something that nope, I got to stick around because these kids are expecting these presents, and it's as much helping him as it is helping them.
I don't know about wrapping 1,000 presents though.
Oh, I can't wrap one. It always looks like an epileptic T-Rex did it. So.
Yeah, I bought a. I'll save that story for the post, but I've wrapped some terrible things. So
yeah, I prefer to buy things either get them pre-wrapped or I just go with gift bags. Gift bags are a lifesaver. I just drop it in there, little tissue paper, tape, done. Abracadabra.
It hides the shape.
That's all I needed. I can't wrap. If I try to wrap, it'll look kind of like an Egyptian mummy that's been handled a lot. There's some wrap here and there, but and you can see what's under.
Just imagine a wrapped, collapsible fishing pole.
You'll never know what it is.
It looked like something. The reel was attached. It looked like something.
Oh, that's a visual.
They were
that under my tree.
They were really happy it was a fishing pole.
Yeah. Go open your present. No, I don't think I want to. You open it.
That's pretty much what. Do I have to? Yeah, you have to open that one.
You got to do that for a white elephant. That's definitely leave that up there. Because whoever grabs it, everyone's looking at them sideways, like.
That would be a fantastic Secret Santa gift. I'm just saying.
You gotta set it on end though, on their desk or something. Just walk up.
Leave it front and center under the tree, like a bright pink wrapping paper. Put a bow on the top.
Here you go. I knew you'd love it.
Oh, it's just what you've been complaining.
Yeah, it's what you've been complaining you needed.
You'll have a lot of fun using this. Yeah. Oh, all right. On that note, I think this is it. I think this has been episode 77 of Anarchy Monk Friends Roundtable discussion, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
See ya.